Welcome to Occam's Razor. This is the end of the Easter weekend. It's Easter Monday. Yesterday was Easter, and I had a few discussions with some people. Yesterday, of course, I called some relatives over Easter and ended up having a disturbing discussion. My mortgage is coming due again, and I do not want to renew it with the financial institution I have now because they were one of the many financial institutions that illegally froze bank accounts during the Freedom Protest. So, don't want to support that anymore. And as a result of that discussion, we moved on to the coming election, only to discover that this person wanted to vote Liberal. Of course, I asked why, and they immediately fell into the mainstream media tropes that Pierre Poilievre is a bad man. He's a bad man. And of course, naturally, I would ask, oh, if that's the case, then could you just name one policy? Just one. Just name one policy. And of course, they can't because they get flustered. And why do they get flustered? Well, as you saw at the beginning of this video, it's a cult. The liberals are in a cult. It doesn't matter what information you give them. Now, this is a close relative of mine. You think that they would have some sort of empathy for what the liberals have put me through and what they have done to this country. But no, no, alas, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is their fear reaction. And that's was by design. The Covidity-Stupidity event that occurred was done on purpose in order to break people's minds. Now we say, oh no, it wasn't done on purpose. Oh, sorry. Did you just miss the paper that was released from the White House? hmm Right, let's look at this lab leak document, The Origin. Proximal origin of SARS-CoV-2 publication, which was used repeatedly by public health officials and the media to discredit the lab leak theory, was prompted by Dr. Fauci to push the preferred narrative that COVID-19 originated naturally. 1. The virus possesses a biological characteristic that is not found in nature. Created in a lab. 2. Data shows that all COVID-19 cases stem from a single introduction into humans. This runs contrary to previous pandemics where there were multiple spillover events. 3. Wuhan is home to China's foremost SARS research lab, which has a history of conducting gain-of-function research, gene altering, and organism supercharging at inadequate biosafety levels. 4. Wuhan Institute of Virology researchers were sick with COVID-like symptoms in the fall of 2019, months before COVID-19 was discovered at the wet market. And 5, by nearly all measures of science, if there was evidence of a natural origin, it would have already surfaced, but it hasn't. So we remember this time when they were spreading fear and medical disinformation, insisting that natural immunity would not work. But everybody needed to get the jibby jab, or else they would all face a horrible unaliving. Well, turns out that was a lie too. Public health officials disregarded natural immunity despite its proven effectiveness and durability. Right. What we were taught in biology, what we were taught in science, had to be completely abandoned and discredited by the help of the mainstream media and whoever enacted this evil, dastardly plan to not only release this infection, but somehow Big Pharma had a jibby jab ready to go in no time at all for something that was created in a lab. Now, nobody cares about this information. Nobody can because that's in the past now. You see, that's in the past. What counts today for liberals is the new guy, right? He's not the old guy. He's a new guy. He's not the old guy. Mark Carney is the new guy. Justin Trudeau is the old guy. And don't you forget it, because Pierre Poilievre is a bad guy. That's right. He's such a bad guy that we have to vote liberal regardless of anything. Just like those crazy cult-like boomers you saw at the beginning of this video. It's absolutely incredible. So I had this discussion with a relative of mine. It's Easter weekend, and I was telling them on how I cannot renew my mortgage with the existing financial institution I have, not because they won't renew it, but because it doesn't sit well with me, because this bank was one of the banks that froze bank accounts during the freedom protest, illegally, mind you. Without any due process, they just, the government said, hey, freeze their bank account. You know, freezing bank accounts for liberals is something that they are getting away with now, and people just don't care. They just don't care at all that this is what they are doing. Let's not forget that they are currently freezing bank accounts of political opponents. Yes, yes, they are. Yes, they are. Let's not forget Megan Murphy, TPC candidate, still hasn't come back to Canada. We only have a week left in the election, and she wasn't allowed to run. Why? Because the Liberals froze her bank account. And nobody cares. Nobody cares, especially Liberals. They don't care because they're all going to be out there flapping their wings or their broken wings like a broken bird, flap around, smelling her armpits. It's incredible. So, as I'm discussing the situation, and I wasn't going to make a decision until after the election, the timing is falls well for my renewal. And I've even told the banker at the other bank that I went to, a bank that did not freeze bank accounts during the protest. And I told him that I want to wait. I want to wait until after the election. And if the Liberals win, I'm going to sell everything I own and move to Alberta because I doubt Alberta is going to stick around in a nation run by Liberals, in a nation that has been abusing that province, in a nation that has taken advantage of that province and continues to treat that province rather poorly, exploiting it and then turning its taps off and then telling its own people that no, I'm sorry, you have to live in poverty and what little you make, you have to give it to the rest of the country. Yeah. So I'm gonna probably move there if this election is captured by the clowns that we saw at the beginning of this video. And I think it's still a strong possibility that they would because they have all had their brains broken. That fear reaction that controlled their brains into taking an experimental injection without informed consent, they don't care. They still think that we're the others, that we need to be pariahed, that we are the anti-vaxxers. Just like this document I showed you that proves what we knew all along, that natural immunity is natural. Just like we were taught in biology. You know what else we were taught in biology? We were taught the difference between men and women genetically, biologically. But somehow it took a Supreme Court recently in the UK to establish by law that a woman is a female. These far left crazy people have had enough time to capture the planet and people's minds in the mainstream media, and it's about time that we stop it and took it back. But after the election, because at this point now, it does not matter what you tell these liberals. For example, this particular person I was talking to on the phone knows that the liberals have completely and utterly destroyed my career. Utterly and completely destroyed the armed forces, but they don't believe it. They think that's an exaggeration. Yes, they don't care that the numbers are going down. They don't care that there are tampon dispensers in the men's room destroying the warrior culture. They don't care. No, no, you know why they don't care? Because Pierre Poilievre is a bad man. He's a scary man. They have bought hook, line, and sinker the entire fear narrative because they have been conditioned that way. They have been conditioned that way after the entire fear narrative that was pushed on them over the Covidity-Stupidity. And now every time the mainstream media builds up a narrative that if they don't act a certain way, that they must feel fear, they do. They just react. They do things automatically for these people just because they've been trained. They are a bunch of trained seals. They will completely ignore what is in their own best interest or in the best interest of their own family. They will ignore the evidence because Pierre Poilievre is a bad man. It's the orange bad man syndrome. It's the Trump derangement syndrome. It's the conservative derangement syndrome. It is insert your topic derangement syndrome. That's all they do. They use fear to manipulate people, and they're doing it today, and they will do it till the end of the election, and they will do it with the help of the mainstream media, who are desperate for the liberals to win. So they will continue to push their mis and disinformation because they're feeding off our tax dollars. They are literally supporting the only people that pay their salary, because the majority of Canadians are not paying their salary because they're not paying for their papers. They're not paying for their cable subscriptions. They're not paying for the items that they are advertising on their channels because nobody's watching their channels. So they are in their fanatical death throes. And that is why the mainstream media, along with the liberals, are completely losing their minds this election. And they will do the same thing that the liberals do, and I'm talking about the mainstream media, is that they will lie through their teeth to win this election for the liberals because they don't have a choice. If they don't, they know they're going to be looking for another job. And they know the economy is pretty well toast after 9 years of liberal destruction. That if they leave to go find a job in the job market, there is no job market either because the economy is destroyed. So why are they voting for Mark Carney? Other than, Pierre Poilievre is a evil bad man, and we can't discuss why. We can't even tell you what policy he's done wrong, but we know he's bad man. He's bad man. Why are they voting for Mark Carney? For this fantastical creation the press has done about him. Mark Carney is a worse narcissist than Justin Trudeau. Mark Carney has not done a single speck of volunteer work in his life. Everything he has done has been for Mark Carney. When you listen to his rallies and you listen to him talk, when he's trying to talk to the public, when he's not, well, he knows that when he goes to talk, first thing he goes, yeah, and then he starts to talk. It's like he's got some weird kind of like reflective tick. I worked with somebody like that in the military once. We made a lot of fun of him. But that was back then. This is today. Today we're going to make fun of Mark Carney. Why? Because he's never done any volunteer work. He's done no community work. There's no proof that he's ever done anything for any community in Canada. In fact, his entire history has been only about Mark Carney. And that's why in Canada, typically, when you vote for a party and then that party gets a majority and that party leader who's been elected the leader of that party becomes prime minister, it's because that party leader has already won his seat. It's because that party leader has already worked in his community. He's already supported his riding. He's already worked for some constituents, at least, done a few things for them, looked into things, at the very least. That's our parliamentary democracy. No, no, you have a guy here, Mark Carney, who was elected leader without a seat. Now, that's not unprecedented. But he has no record of being in Canada doing anything for Canadians. And of course, the mainstream media will not talk about that. They won't talk about that at all. Just like they won't talk about the fact that Canadian Armed Forces soldiers are still being coerced into a 3 jibby-jab regime of the Covidity-Stupidity in order to keep their job, in order to join the Canadian Armed Forces. And the Canadian Armed Forces have stated that if you get injured from the jibby-jab, it is not work related and that you will not be given duty of care. This is a reality. This is a reality my relative can't fathom. Can't fathom in their brain to say, oh, maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's evil. Maybe I shouldn't be voting for a party that supports that kind of evil. But no, no, you know what? Their brains are broken. and they're probably a bad man, and that trumps everything. That trumps mass unaliving of people through experimental injections. That trumps 50,000 plus Canadians having died of overdoses enabled by harm reduction. This surpasses 50,000 plus Canadians having been unalived through medical assistance in unaliving. This dismisses the fact that Canadians can't access a majority of social services and healthcare or a long waiting list because the country has been inundated with uncontrolled mass immigration by a party that did it on purpose. It doesn't matter to them. The only thing that matters to them is the fear reaction narrative that has been pre-programmed into their brains. This has been Occam's Razor. Have a great day. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
This photo is a work of art. This photo will define this Canadian election. This older gentleman giving the double middle finger at a Mark Carney rally with a big smile on his face is a representation of an entire class of people that does not care that you won't be able to afford a home, that does not care that you won't be able to have and raise kids in this country, that does not care about the fact that their country and culture is being completely destroyed and decimated from underneath them. This is the face of people who laugh and smile at the fact that you're complaining about the state of this country. They don't care. They love it. They know what they're doing. They know they're ruining things, and they love it because they're fine. They don't have to worry about it. And you know, it's not all old people, so don't blame all the boomers. Don't say it's everybody, because it's a very select group of people. But these types of people are the ones that want to screw over your future. So are you going to let that happen, or are we going to outvote people like this? Because we cannot have this continue on.